I'm so excited about this session. I want to just say we are all really lucky to hear from a true change agent. Karen, before I go into Karen's career details, which are fascinating, everyone should know that Karen is a mentor in our community. She's a mentor to Pai Pai Song. Maybe I pronounced that wrong. I'm so sorry. Maybe the Cambodian girls can help me with that next time. But Pai Pai got into Dartmouth just this fall, and she'll be coming. If she got into Dartmouth, and will be coming in the fall. Let me tell you about Karen. Karen has 20 years of experience as a change agent in human rights, social justice, and building high impact global initiatives all around the world. She's a lawyer by training and she's dedicated her career to changing abusive and discriminatory laws and systems, working across politics, race, and geography. I have to say, before I go into more details, that I feel fortunate to be her friend and to be able to interview her and hear her story and share it with you all. When you drill down into her career, you'll see that she's truly been a force for change. And she's done that through partnering with heads of state, global corporations, local communities, religious leaders, and military forces. She's brought creativity and innovation to intractable challenges. And I actually had to look that up, and intractable means hard to control or deal with. And she's worked in both the public and private sectors, meaning in government and nonprofits and corporations. Her career started on the front lines of advocacy in the Middle East, working with Palestinian youth groups to organize and advocate for nonviolent change. And she's also worked to free sex slaves in Afghanistan, prevent child and exploitive labor in Bangladesh, to end torture in Iraq, to free political prisoners in Ethiopia, and reform abusive security forces around the world. But it's really the beginning. She has held many, throughout her career, many influential positions, particularly in the US State Department. She served as an appointee in the Obama administration for 7 years, including 2 years overseeing a major project for Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. At that time, her title was Deputy Assistant Secretary of State in the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor. And as a part of the State Department, she's worked to advance human rights and freedom in Africa and South and Central Asia. And she's also worked closely with global corporations on issues of corporate social responsibility, community engagement, and human rights. And she shaped US and global policies on gender, LGBTQI, and labor rights and security. Also in the Obama administration, she worked as the US coordinator for international assistance to Afghanistan and Pakistan. And she went on and designed and ran the Quadrennial Diplomacy and Development Review. The acronym is QDDR, for Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. This is a major strategic planning and organizational change initiative that strengthened how the US conducts diplomacy and development. So I know many of you are in international relations. You might look that up, the QDDR. It is in her, I think it's mentioned in Wikipedia, because I got lost reading about it, and it was fascinating. Karen has also served in Iraq and Afghanistan as the State Department's senior rule of law coordinator in Iraq and a senior consultant to the Iraqi Minister of Human Rights. Then she's also served in the UK as the Chief Innovation Officer for United Kingdom's Department for International Development. She pivoted a little when she went on to serve as VP for International Peace and Stability in a Fortune 500 company, leading large-scale organizational change efforts and traveling around the world to integrate human rights, rule of law, and security assistance. But then she had another pivot, and today she is the CEO and president of Glide Memorial Church in San Francisco. And I don't know if any of you all know about Glide, but it's a huge institution in San Francisco. It's historically a conservative Methodist church. It opened in 1930, but in the 60s, it transformed into what Wikipedia calls a counterculture rallying point, and since then has been one of the most prominently liberal churches in the United States. Glide is an institution like no other. It has transformed the San Francisco San Francisco's poverty-ridden Tenderloin community by helping its low-income residents, and especially women, with transformative gifts such as shelter, drug rehab, food, livelihood, and much, much more. I have to say it's one of the best ways to spend a Sunday morning. Spending a Sunday morning at Glide, at their service, it just sets you off for the whole week. The gospel music, it makes me cry every time I go. So I don't know, I think they're deciding if they're going to have live services now that COVID's back, but you can watch it online. And next Christmas, definitely ask your mentors to take you to Glide. I'm sure that everyone would want to go. So I haven't even talked about Karen's education. She's an alumna of Indiana University, Harvard Business School, the University of Washington School of Law, and the American University School of International Service, where she earned a master's in international peace and conflict resolution. To top it all off, in May of 2018, she was named the San Francisco Business Times most influential women in Bay Area business, one of. And then I also have a fun fact. Her kids, yes, she's raising 2 children along with her husband, and their names are Finn and Jordan, or Jojo, and they have a family dance party every night. So super fun family. And then among her many accomplishments, she's also competed in triathlons. So wowzer, let's see Karen. Welcome her, everybody.
Wow.
There you are.
That was long.
Detailed. I wanted everyone to know everything, or most of everything.
I will try to live up to that. I also realized that Glide has come a long way and is such a different institution than I think in your description. So I look forward to catching you up on that.
That sounds really good. Okay, but it's still it's even more impactful. I know. Yeah. Okay, so let's jump in. Everyone, I'm going to ask Karen questions, and then there's going to be 10 minutes at the end at least, and you all can ask her questions also. But I just want to start, we're an education institution, just talking about your college experience. You have 4 college degrees. Did that make a difference in your career?
First, let me just say to everyone here in the group, it's really an honor to be here and to be a part of this discussion. Also be a mentor to She-Can. I'm new this year, and it's a really important undertaking. Building a movement for women's leadership is so critical. So I'm thrilled to be here. I just caught part of Dr. Bryant's presentation, which was clearly amazing. So I know you're in good hands with Barbara, her team, and everyone else. So I would say, I wouldn't say that 4 degrees are necessary, and they were at different levels: college, master's degree, law degree, and then more of an executive degree at Harvard Business School. But it's not necessary, but for me, they each played a very specific role in my own evolution as both a person and a professional. They each helped me grow and develop at the moment when I needed to. And so, I think the degree that impacted me the most as a human being was my master's degree in international peace and conflict resolution from American University. It really reinforced a lot about who I was already, and shaped kind of who I wanted to be, what I thought was possible in the world. Not only did we learn all about international politics and realpolitik and popular movements, but we focused a lot on kind of social and environmental trends that were defining the state of our world, really, from oppression and climate change to war crimes and also positive things. So we really also, I think, a big part of it was focusing on learning how to drive change. It was a very there were a lot of practical experiences, opportunities to work abroad, and just lessons in change, social change, big change, little change, changes ourselves, the importance of having change start with you as an individual, but all the levels of change, systems level, community level, etc. We studied some of the most courageous and also some of the most harmful change agents in the world, in global history, from Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, even to cult leaders like Adolf Hitler, just learning what drives change, both negative and positive. I really saw how the greatest changes for humanity have been rooted in courageous, nonviolent action. And
I love that. In fact, I want to say it again. It's the American University School of International Service, International Peace and Conflict, right? I mean, this is perfect for our scholars. This is exactly.
It's an incredible program. When I went through it, it's been a while. It's been some years, but it's a unique degree, a unique program in the world of international affairs. It's not about diplomacy. It's not just about kind of foreign policy, security. It's really a unique perspective. So if you're interested, I highly recommend it.
Awesome.
I would just say, it shaped me as a professional, in terms of, I really learned that advancing human rights and justice was not just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. Investing in women and girls, some of the smartest investments you can make. All of these things that have historically fallen on the humanitarian agenda are really, really smart for economics, for security, for stability. And so it's just a world, it influenced me a lot.
I love that. Did you plan to be a change agent, or did your career evolve and open up that way?
Yeah, so it definitely evolved over time. I didn't have grand plans from the time I was young. I didn't know what career I wanted when I went to university. So I had ideas about some things, mostly journalism, but I wasn't sure. When I look back at my choices, I was always in tune with something in the core of who I was. And the paths that I took really reflect this. They reflect these core parts of me, issues I cared about. I always felt strongly about justice and fairness and human rights and equality, and also hope and inspiration. And how do you, the idea of what motivates, how do you inspire for change? So I was always compelled by conflicts and controversies, but also this idea of positive, inspiring and hopeful change. So all of my choices really reflect those elements of who I am. And I played different roles, from being a human rights activist on the front lines, an implementer, a peace builder, to being a policymaker and a diplomat and a lawyer, and a funder. So I guess the point on all of that is, if you can even just have a sense and begin to get a sense of what you care about deeply, what fills you up, or even just what really interests you, and you can continue to keep a hold of that, it can really help you make decisions about your career.
It's kind of like what Dr. Seko just said, like, you need joy. You need to really enjoy it. And if it's there for you, then you're going to enjoy it. Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. I love this question. I've been wanting to ask you this question for a long time. I want to hear a story. Your life has been so interesting. You've been, working with global leaders and terrorists, and give us a story that just stands out. about your life.
Sure, sure. I'll try to tell two. I'll try to shorten them. And I don't always do this because I feel like, sometimes anecdotes, I don't always tell these stories. I think.
Thank you for doing it.
Yeah. One that I would share is some time in Afghanistan where I was working for the United Nations, and I was working in Western Afghanistan and we had just learned about a group of women and girls being held against their will, not by the Taliban, but by the governing local ministry representatives and local officials, which, as some of you know, are a lot of whom had just been sort of fighting with warlords, and their legitimacy was unclear. I and my interpreter spent a series of months. It took about 5 months going through a slow and deliberate process to get these women and girls free. There were about 20, in the end, about 23. During the process, 2 of the women killed themselves. A number of them had come from Iran, but some had come from within Afghanistan. And so they were being held under the auspices of protection. Women and girls were not supposed to be out, without relatives, without protection in Afghanistan. And so that's the justification. And so we went on this it was a fascinating journey of how do you get change in a situation like that? What are your tools? How do you, when you're so mortified and scared and upset about what's happening, and they are being held against their will and the stakes are high and huge, how do you affect change? And in this case, in Afghanistan, it was important that we started from a very culturally appropriate space. It wasn't about being right. It was about getting these women free. So it was figuring out how to speak with the right people in the right way and find a solution that got these women and girls out of that location. It was also very much about relationship building. So I, both with the women and girls to trust me as an ally. So it took about a month for me to get agreement to actually go in and visit them and see them and spend time with them. Wow. And another month for them to kind of open up with me and really talk about what was really happening, which was very dangerous for them. They all felt ashamed and scared and desperate. And so it was quite a journey of trying to hold the government accountable while showing respect, allowing some face saving, but without compromising the women and girls. So we did end up finally, after many months, getting them, through that route, plus applying some outside pressure, getting, the head of the UNHCR mission and different other people to write private letters, and then, other kinds of things. We ended up getting them free.
I remember reading about that.
Oh, do you?
Oh, yeah. And some of them came to school here, right? And came to the US. Yeah.
So some of them did, a couple, but a number, it was a mix. We returned some to their families if that was a safe space. There weren't a lot of places to go for unaccompanied women and girls, but yeah, they were all assisted in different ways.
Wow. I have so many tingles all from my body.
I was going to tell another one, but I know I'm taking too much time.
No, do one more.
So another one, and the reason I'm sharing these is because we have so many amazing future leaders on this call, current leaders and future leaders. And just, I want to just make sure everyone knows, like, we can do hard things. We can do things that seem really hard and really impossible. And they don't always work perfectly, but we can do it. And so another thing was, I have to not share too many specifics, because there are security issues. There were security issues. So in the kind of national security apparatus, working in the State Department, my role as Deputy Assistant Secretary for Democracy and Human Rights was often, it was often coming to the table at the White House, at the National Security Council, even within the State Department, with the human rights voice. And for me, I believe deeply that, again, it's not just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. The more people's rights are abused, the more injustice they face, the more likely they are to turn to violence and to organize and to start movements, often violent movements. And so it is in our national interest to advance human rights, in addition to being, again, the right thing to do, which is complicated. But so in that environment, sometimes I wasn't holding the popular stance. And we had security officials and people wanting to focus on economics and partnerships, long-standing partnerships. And in one of the countries, we had very good information about a government-sponsored program that was really causing a lot of death and instability and problems. And it was, again, another process of sitting at the table as a both on the hook as an American representative, a diplomat, and also a change agent, having to advocate within our own national security apparatus, people getting very, very angry. There were a lot of feelings around it, about me compromising decades-long partnerships with a certain country, and me wanting to destabilize regional security. And in the end, again, to stay focused on the objective. What is objective? What are the facts? What is the situation? What is happening and what is the result? It allowed me to push through and to change US policy, because the strategy I chose was a deliberate, objective, evidence-based advocacy strategy within my own government. I'm sorry, I can't share more details.
But it's fascinating. But it's like you held on to your values despite all the pressure, and I
held on to values and my belief of what is in the best interest of our country. Mm-hmm. So it is values-based, but it's also pragmatic.
I think it's very valuable.
Good.
What you told us, enough to get that. Stay true. Okay. I want to know, how did you come to work with Secretary of State Hillary Clinton? And importantly, what was it like to work with one of the most influential and powerful leaders on this planet, who is a female?
So it was glorious. It was, the opportunity to just work for somebody so smart, so hardworking, such an incredible leader. It was one of the best professional experiences that I've ever had. And in fact, it was a mentor who put my resume in front of Hillary Clinton. I was not one of the kind of members of these long-standing circles of people around Hillary Clinton. And it was a mentor. So that's a good lesson in keeping just the importance of mentors and learning from them and leveraging them. So this mentor was I'd worked closely with him and he was my advocate. So my very first interview with her was at her house in Washington, D.C. And it was before she was a senator then. I remember walking up the driveway thinking, okay, Karen, don't mess this up. And so, but I just, I can't say enough about working for her. And one of the reasons is she always surrounded herself with with very smart, very strategic, and thoughtful people. And she herself was incredibly, as I said, hardworking, and one of those unique leaders who was clear-eyed and didn't feel the need to compromise. So a lot of diplomats and national security leaders sometimes feel you need to trade off. Well, if we're going to push security with this country and we need them for security or economic reasons, we can't really hold their feet to the fire on these human rights issues. But she didn't feel the need to trade off. She saw very clearly that you can do both, and she did both. And so every time she went on a trip, had a meeting, there was always an agenda item or more than one on human rights. I think one of the other things that I appreciate so much about her leadership, and the world, I think, has benefited from it, is that she really drove a tipping point for women and girls around the world. For years, the evidence had been building around linking investments in women and girls to advance raising GDP, to economic development, all these benefits for entire communities and entire countries. The evidence was building for that. And I think her leadership really brought it to a place where now the whole world, it is a common strategy among the global community to invest in women and girls' health, education, entrepreneurship opportunities, to lift whole nations out, not just to help women and girls, but to lift whole communities out of poverty, climate change solutions, sort of to address some of our biggest and most challenging problems.
Yeah, I think the world doesn't really know that about her, that she really was pivotal in that. And I wish I could talk to her about that.
Yeah. So do you think the world does not know that?
I don't think they know that Hillary was the one who helped with that. I think people are starting to know that a little bit, people in the know, but I didn't know that Hillary was instrumental in that. No.
Well, I think it's built, so building over years, she, from her time as First Lady and her time ever since, I can remember her as a public figure, she has been an advocate for women and girls, and it's looked different ways. And she is, she's been serious about it. She's not, I've worked in the world of human rights and development long enough to know that sometimes it's just lip service or words on a page. Mm-hmm. But it was constant. It was at the top of her agenda. She created, a special department and ambassador at large role for it in the State Department. Yep. She put more resources to it. And again, the evidence was there. It's not that she created all of this. The body of evidence had been developing, but she really did play a leadership role, I think.
Love that. You also said when we chatted that she was a hard worker.
Yes.
Talk about that a little bit.
So, I feel we've probably all experienced different levels of work ethics. I know I have. And she remains, she would be the person, even as Secretary of State, where she was responsible for, the US policy and diplomacy around the world. She still read memos all the way to page 5 and 8 and would ask you questions about it. And they were always smart questions, and she always got, she got it. And she was, it seems like she was, I don't know personally, but she was constantly traveling. It seemed like she didn't sleep a lot. But just, yeah, a really hard work. She didn't leave it up always to everybody else. She wanted to make sure that she understood the issues.
I love that. You know, we're almost at the question stage. And actually, Rosie, your question in the chat is the next question I was going to ask. So Rosie, I'm going to have you come on and ask your question. We'll start the Q&A with our question. Rosie, can you turn your
Yes, hi.
Hey.
Thank you for giving me the floor, Barbara. Karen, I am super interested. In fact, I'm applying to grad school for international policies. And so it's just really insightful to hear about your experiences and your stories. My question that I put in the chat was, what advice would you give to aspiring female policymakers and diplomats, especially in a field that is very male dominated?
So, so specific, I had some advice around being a change agent. If it's
That's great. Yeah.
But I think you're raising a point around, it looks different in different fields and kind of advice. That's a very specific kind of set of advices. But I guess it would, it's they're similar. So, we're talking about, I know part of this discussion, part of the She Can ethos and values is about change and agency and empowerment. And so what I have learned is that the sooner you can figure out what you care deeply about, the issues that motivate you, inspire you, and then become the smartest person at the table on those issues, the better off you are. And even if you evolve and change and learn different issues, but it's always helpful to have the information and the facts and be the one who is the expert when you're at the table. I think, again, as change agents, I would recommend, this might be an obvious statement, but to focus on social change and to make that the theme, whatever issue you choose. I think that will sustain you throughout your career, whatever path you take in whatever roles. I think another important point is beware of dogma and judgment, meaning when you are at a table, no matter who it's with, I've sat across from real sociopaths in terms of torturers and just people who also had just very different lives than I have had and different views. And I think that a normal tendency, especially if you're working on a social issue and you know it's right and feel really strongly about it, I think the tendency is to keep trying to push your point and be right, and to be dogmatic and to judge somebody across from you or at the table, whether they are across from you or just on the other side of a debate. And I think it's important that we all approach our roles with more openness and with the intention to understand who we're talking to, and sometimes specifically to be a more effective change agent, but also sometimes because we don't know it all. We even if we think we know, we're certain we know, there's always the opportunity for us to be enlightened by others and to approach an issue with compassion and understanding.
Yesterday, we spent the day talking about empathy. I mean, we spent the whole day. Is that kind of what you're saying in some way?
I think that it's definitely a dimension of it. It is. I mean, taking time to walk in someone else's shoes is always helpful. It makes us more effective as change agents and just better human beings, I think.
Okay. I didn't mean to cut you off. You were going to make another point.
Oh, no, I the list could go on. I mean, I would think that as change agents and in the realm of international policy, domestic policy, or really any social change you take up, we do a lot of hard things. There's sometimes despair and systemic challenges that you're like, oh my gosh, how can we ever change the system? The problem is so intractable and deeply rooted. So my advice on this is to find hope and find points of light and hope, because they will sustain you, and they are always there. If you're working on human rights issues, even just engaging, there's so many positive stories. There's so many courageous people doing amazing things. So I would find hope, try to hold onto it, and make sure that's part of your change agent toolkit, because it helps when people feel hopeful.
Wow, that's awesome. I have one more question, does anyone want to ask a question? We have about 3 minutes, and then I have a last question. I want to leave more time for you all. Any questions, anybody?
We